It is Tuesday, December 16th, and it's a beautiful sunny day here in the Okanagan after all that rain. It's absolutely amazing here in Kelowna. How are things out there in the nation's capital there?
Very cold, but there's a little bit of sunshine for the first time in a long time, but it's about -6, I think, right now.
Wow, and if I get a palm plant like you've got back there and I put one on my other shoulder there, we could do this show called Between Two Palms instead of the Between Two
That's a
Ferns.
good idea. Yeah.
Our goal is to make you laugh, but our goal is also to get you to subscribe. Please subscribe, share, do whatever you can. Hit the like button, hit the dislike button. I don't know, hit some buttons and comment. Tell us where you're watching from. Help us get this out there as media in Canada continue to be suppressed by our government. And we're going to get into some of that in a bit here. But some of the headlines today. Canadian prosperity squandered as MPs focus on power. Canadian economy facing deterioration. Promises made, promises not kept. Canadians facing mortgage renewal shock. Youth in Canada dejected. Alberta says we have a plan B, as BC says, no way. Liberals show little respect for democracy. Nobody's watching CBC, yet they get more money. How do they do that? Like, that's amazing, right? We're going to show you some of that. And the Liberals seem to want to control the media even more than they're already controlling with Bill C-18. 2.5 trillion. And Francois Philippe Champagne is being called out and says, why do we need the debt ceiling that high? EV mandates collapse worldwide, but not yet in Canada. EB has failed BC, according to many people. Local mayors now calling him out. ABC, Australia's public broadcaster, gets called out as well by one of the victims' daughters. And Australians reach out to Trump with a plea. And is peace closer in Ukraine? All that and a lot more on the Really Big Show. I mean, actually, I'm barely touching on some of the stuff we have. We have actually a really big show. Ed Sullivan would be proud of today's show. And the big thing, the big trade talk, we're closing off 2025. The big promise from the Liberals and Mark Carney was a trade deal. And we're supposed to get it by July. And here it is. The end of the year. I don't know what graphic that was. Where'd that come from? Somebody hacked our system there. Here it is. We're closing off 2025 and nothing. Let's listen to this clip here from and Kate Harrison on CBC and what she has to say about it. There's no link. Well, we're gonna have to find the link because we're gonna have to play that one. You should be able to find it from that Mark Nixon there. But yeah, so I mean, we can stall, right, till we find that link, because she nails it. Like, we're talking about how long now they've been talking about trade. Now they're trying to tell us that they're going to wait for Kuzma to get this trade deal done. And as you know,
But what the great thing about them is they'll say that, and then they'll say, and that's the patriotic thing to do. So patriotism has literally just become whatever their plan is right now. That's patriotism. Because it used to be patriotic to try and get a deal by July. That used to be the Canada Strong option, didn't it?
Turns out we have the clip, and in that small budget we have, we don't compete with the CBC's $1.55 billion, but we still found the clip, and we're going to play it for you.
No audio.
The outcome at every stage Canada wanted to avoid because they wanted resolution on the sectoral tariffs prior to that whole thing, because you don't know where your economy is going to be no matter what's happening in the U.S.
Well, that's certainly what they claimed to want to avoid. And it is what the Prime Minister ran the election on, was that there would be certainty in the trade relationship moving forward. And now to hear, you know, his top officials say, well, it's going to be many months away and potentially half a year away. Like, we are very, very much departed and divorced from the narrative that he ran on. And so while we might not consider that, you know, to be novel or unexpected, I think it would rightly take a lot of Canadians by surprise that the Prime Minister, who said that he was going to strike out and achieve a new economic and security deal, is content to let that slip. Let's also keep in mind what will happen next year, which is U.S. primaries. So if we are waiting for this renegotiation that is very unlikely to be ratified, on the U.S. side because they're going to be in their own election cycle. That adds to the instability and the uncertainty that Rob is talking about in terms of investment here. So I think we're talking about the economic risk. There's, of course, a political risk as well to the Prime Minister in terms of what he said he would do during the election campaign and the reality that we now have. And lastly, I just have to say this idea that Donald Trump is going to, find religion and treat Canada with some goodwill and Kuzma is foolhardy. He's been pretty clear about what he expects of Canada, and I don't know how waiting for a Kuzma renegotiation to have him say the very thing that he's been saying already for the past year is going to have Canada emerge from that any more successful.
I have to agree with all that. I mean, how long do we wait? And, all we get is more delays, and then we get the rhetoric. Canada has the best trade deal ever. And then the world's changed. We just continue to get mixed messaging. But
they've got a slogan for that eventuality, if it comes to it. And the slogan is, they go in their wallet and they pull out the slogan, which is, we can give ourselves far more than anyone can take away from us. There you go. That's the credit card that they put down. And elections will be won.
Apparently. Here's Francois Philippe Champagne. He's now in Europe. But look at what they're promising now. Listen to this. Francois Philippe Champagne.
Hi everyone, we just landed here in Paris a few hours ago. We're going to be in Europe for the next 3 days talking to investors following Budget 2025. We're looking at defense, we're looking at critical minerals, we're looking at the energy sector. A lot of interest about what Canada has to offer, so stay with us. Over the next few days, we'll tell you more as we go from one place to the other.
One guarantee, they'll spend a lot of money because they're not promising much now. Our goals, here's the goal. Discuss investments, defense, and critical minerals and continue strengthening our alliances. So no promises of a deal, no deal in ahead. Like when Trump goes abroad, he's usually got a deal that he's going there to sign. They're just going on another thing to meet. Why don't you just pick up the phone? Why do you got to go there to discuss investments, defense, and critical minerals? Zoom, lots of things. Didn't Tim Hodgson say that?
It's a fishing expedition.
Hey, didn't Tim Hodgson say that when somebody wanted to talk to him? He said it's called Zoom. Maybe Francois.
I wonder what. Sorry, you go.
Oh, you go ahead. No,
I'm just wondering what the Parisians think of champagne. The sophisticated Parisians, like, who is this bumpkin? Hello, everybody. We gonna really boost up Canada's economy. Good for Canadian. And just what he said at the end there, it was like a kid's documentary or something, wasn't it? It's like, you're going to follow us as we go. He's going to show us how a train works.
Well, again, Canada leading in photo ops and now leading in social media posts there. They got these creators and influencers. They've hired them. They paid for them. Trudeau did in the past. We got a little bit of levity to our show today because, sometimes with all the bad news, you got to have some levity for sure. But here's a Financial Post putting out an opinion piece. Canada's province facing deteriorating outlook, and that's from Fitch Ratings. I mean, that's, we continue to block ourselves over and over and over again. The outlook for Canada's provinces in 2026 remain deteriorating. That's Fitch after lowering its outlook from neutral in its mid-year report. Economic and fiscal
no surprise.
Economic and fiscal challenges continue to tilt slightly negative for provinces, despite resilience this far. I mean, BC's had its ratings dropped as well.
BC is in fiscal hell, but it's certainly not the only province. I mean, there are definitely other messed up provinces, but then there are special circumstances in BC, aren't there? Evie likes to pretend that it's the engine of the Canadian economy and all that, but in many ways, it's kind of ground zero of 21st century dysfunction in Canada, where even the very land that you do business on and live on is in question now. That's uncertain because of David Eby's moral campaign that's blown up in his face.
Here's the chart that you talk about a lot, just to show you how Canada compares to the United States and the Euro in household debt as a percentage of GDP. Shocking, stupefying, unsustainable.
It's just madness, isn't it? I mean, it's painful just to look at. It's catastrophic.
But, according to them, it's all good, right?
Somebody in the comments has asked, is Mark Carney an atheist? And says, I've never heard him speak about religion. He's actually, if you believe him, he's a hardcore Catholic. He's
Yeah,
the real deal
a
Catholic.
practicing Catholic, according to him. But then he said all Muslim values are Canadian values. So not sure where that came from.
And he also, like a lot of Catholic politicians, chooses to ignore the instructions of the church on, for example, abortion, the role of women in society, etc., etc. So it's really a la carte. It's not like true Catholicism, but I'm sure that would upset him a lot if he heard somebody say that to him.
And then just to show you how frustrating it is in Canada, there's a like almost like a Babylon Bee in Canada startup, Satire Squad, and this is kind of like, it's painfully almost true. You know, you'd almost believe this headline: Trump calls Canada the most unproductive country on earth, praises its ability to stop every project. I mean, it's satire, but like it's not far from the truth, and I guess that's what makes satire work so well, right? Do you know what I mean? Like, we seem to be just do MOUs and have discussions. We consult, people protest, they sue, we consult again. Because look, 9 months in, they ran on a pipeline. Canada's going to be an energy superpower. We don't even know what the energy is that we're focusing on, do we? What is it? What's been accomplished in 9 months? 9 months. I'm waiting.
Well, we've got a lot of social media videos.
Yeah, we got lots of videos. Killing it in videos. Creators are getting.
Mark Carney's met Keir Starmer 5 times or something like that. That's a bit of a success.
And will he continue to meet Keir Starmer when Keir Starmer is unemployed?
Maybe he'll give him a job. Maybe he'll bring him over to Canada.
Run the Bank of Canada. But here's another thing that has come home to roost, and this is after Tiff Macklin said in 2020 there that you're not going to raise interest rates. Go ahead and get that mortgage. You can be confident interest rates are going to be low for a long period of time. And then they raised those rates. We've got that next chart there. They raised those rates. I was going to play the clip, but we played it so many times here when he said that. They raised those rates in unprecedented fashion. Look at that. It's never been done at that speed. It went from 0.25 to 5. And I mean, that's huge. And now, right now, a lot of those mortgages are coming to renewal time. And it's called payment shock. 46% hike in monthly payments for those renewing their mortgages right now. 46%. And after that, you know, like I've done interviews, 67% of Canadians, like $200 away from meeting their monthly obligations. And all of a sudden you get a 46% jump in your monthly mortgage payment. And that's, we interviewed, Steve McDonald interviewed Aaron Marsh here in Kelowna of Ramponi Marsh Mortgages. And, you know, some of the strategies are to extend your mortgage time, like to extend it. You know what I mean? Like, that's not really helping, but I mean, it's a way to make it, right? But this is happening. We've been talking about this for a long time as mortgages come for renewal. You know, people that took out a 5-year mortgage at a low rate, now they're refinancing at much higher rates. And
we can only look on at the Americans with their fixed rate, like 1.5% mortgages and things, like 30-year fixed rate.
We don't have that.
They have no idea how glorious that is, do they? They are, or maybe they do know, but I feel like they just take it for granted in America. But it's like, you just have to salivate. You just look at that, don't you? And it's like, wow, 1.5%, 30-year mortgage.
Yeah, and then there's an example on here that they use. If you go on Kelowna now, and you can read the story, and use the example of a mortgage, a $500,000 mortgage, which is pretty low in Canada, especially, you know, in this Kelowna area where the average house price was over $1 million. But a 25-year amortization in 2020-21 was 1.79% over 5 years. And, you know, that was about a $2,000 payment. But now here we come with renewal time, and it's 3.99. 3.99. So that $2,067 payment is now $3,018. That's $951 more. And many Canadians were only a couple $100 away from meeting their monthly obligations. That's
catastrophe,
huge.
Isn't it?
Huge.
But as you point out, 500 grand's not going to get you much, is it? In Kelowna, it might get you like
this is going to be double that,
one-bedroom apartment or something.
I know.
Oh no,
lots
yeah,
of
absolutely.
People.
This is just an example, but
I know lots of people that were doing, like, $1 million. They're making, $1.2 million. That's an average home in Kelowna. and say they're carrying $1 million mortgage or $800,000 mortgage. So this is in the, like approaching $2,000 increase. And nothing changed. Nothing changed. Groceries have gone up. Like we talked about it yesterday. If you go watch yesterday's show, Canadians paying the price, liberals and elites and other politicians and the people at the highest rung doing extremely well. Well, most Canadians continue to suffer, and that is being ignored. And then that tax break they keep promoting was $11 for the lowest end of the rung in Canada. $11 a year, that's what the benefit was. And for the average Canadian, according to the PBO's office, was about $250, not the touted $868.
And how dishonest is it to talk about that as a tax break anyway? Because it's obviously, you have to look at it net tax, and that includes property tax, everything else, provincial taxes. Property tax alone will more than destroy that federal tax break of $11.
And this is the message that this is why I question. I've said this many times. How does Tiff Macklin still have his jobs? Our message to Canadians that interest rates are very low, and they're going to be very low for a long time. If you got a mortgage, consider making a major purchase, or you're in a business considering making an investment, you can be confident that rates will be low for a long time in an unprecedented fashion. There it is right there. Unprecedented fashion. Remember, they denied there was no inflation. Then it's transitory, and this is all with those easy money policies and reckless spending, absolutely reckless spending, and they're trying to recover some of it. Money just was thrown out the door. And who paid the price for it? Canadians are paying the price for it still today. And the people that are paying the biggest price are the youth. And, this is somebody putting on, I bought my first house in 2007. It was semi-detached. It was 26, making about $67,000. I mean, I bought my first house when I was, I think, in my early 20s. And it was $86,000. And actually, at that time, you could assume a mortgage. And that's the only way I did it. I assumed a mortgage. They don't even have that available anymore. But we have look at this chart here this is from CTV. Look at this. Unhappy. This is our youth. Housing starts. How did they become the unhappiest generation? Well, I can tell you why. They feel ignored. They feel absolutely ignored. The thought of owning a house is gone. Jobs, everything. I mean, and the boomers sold them out.
And simultaneously, of course, there are other things like social media seems to the science, the studies seem to suggest that just makes you depressed, no matter who you are. I know it's almost universally for you. But then there are other things. I mean, there's so much in the politics, and they're being reliably disinformed. They're being subject to a vicious and well-organized disinformation campaign to persuade them that they are responsible for forest fires and things like that, and for the world ending in the next 10 or 20 years. And they're being, I mean, not so much these days since she moved on to anti-Semitism, but being fed propaganda from the likes of Greta Thunberg. That really does have an effect. And we've talked about previous studies how a lot of this younger generation genuinely believe that sort of thing. They believe that they are responsible for the end of the world, and that getting in an Uber or something like that, or like, buying a ticket to get in a bus, that somehow contributes to the end of the world, rather than like, the industrial edifice in the Pearl River or something like that. They genuinely think that they're to. And if I was under that impression, I think I would be pretty scared and sad as well.
Yeah, let us know if my sound improves. We pass that along to our tech guy again. We don't have the $1.55 billion that CBC has, even though the cost of readership or viewership on CBC continues to skyrocket as they have less and less viewers, but take more and more taxpayer dollars. Amazing, isn't it? Here is some good news, though. Got to put out some of the good news. Tech Anglo-American deal wins Ottawa approval after promising billions in spending. So this deal finally got the approval because the shareholders approved it, and it was like 99% by Tech, 99% by Anglo-American. And part of their promise was to put their headquarters in Vancouver. That doesn't mean they're going to do a ton here, but there is some promises. And And this is Jolie said she signed off on the deal late Monday. Jolie said in a statement she determined the merger will be a net benefit and call it a significant win. And Teck, one of Canadians' great companies, Teck also walked away from the Frontier project in Alberta. That's a Fort Mac project. Blamed the Liberals at that time. They spent over $1 billion and said there was no path forward and just walked away from it. So they are very familiar with some of the policies that have killed resource development here in Canada. She said the plan to create $70 billion company was a significant win with Teck and Anglo Manor branding its merger of equals. And I wouldn't say it's a branding or a merger of equals. It's an unequivocal endorsement of the federal government's effort to build the strongest economy in the G7. Well, let's call it a win. With this merger, Anglo and Teck have agreed to a robust package of legally binding commitments. Well, hopefully that somebody reads this contract. Securing 4,000 jobs in Canada. Doesn't say we're adding jobs. 100% of Teck's employment levels in Canada today. So it's just keeping that level of jobs. It's not adding jobs. Proceeding in important investments, including the Highland Valley copper mine. Copper's on fire. Copper over $5, and that has not been for a long time. Extension project will create 2,900 new jobs and enhance critical mineral processing at Teck's existing trail operations. I've toured that facility in the past. Canada's global operation with 66% of senior executives residing primarily in Canada, subject to Canadian taxes, and 50% of Canadian representation guaranteed on the board of directors for 7 years. And they say they're supposed to invest $4.5 billion over the next 5 years, which will enable Anglo Teck to spend at least $10 billion in Canada within 15 years. I mean, for a mine company, $4.5 billion isn't a ton. There you go. So, hey.
But it's an unequivocal endorsement of the Liberal Party, though. That's what matters.
Yeah. But again, good news. Hopefully it works out. And Teck, but the big one, the oil pipeline, gas pipeline. And here's Adrian Dix saying, no way. Let's play Adrian Dix here. He was the former health minister, now the energy minister here in BC.
There is no pipeline. There is no proponent. There is no route. There is no plan. There's no possibility of anyone, because shippers pay through tolls for pipelines, no possibility of anyone paying for the pipeline except for the public, Honourable Speaker. Something we have made very clear, Honourable Speaker. Our government's job, British Columbia's job, is to defend British Columbia, Honourable Speaker. And we are doing that by promoting projects here in British Columbia that will bring real wealth to people. Not fantasy projects, not memorandums of understanding. They don't create anything, Honourable Speaker. What we bring here are real projects, like the North Coast Transmission Line, which the member opposes, Honourable Speaker. Like 18 proposals we brought forward in February, 12 of which the Honourable Member proposes. We support economic development. It's why BC is leading Canada in projects and leading Canada in economic growth.
Leading Canada in economic growth. Can we see those numbers?
I thought this was a white supremacist symbol. Is Adrian Dix a white supremacist now? I didn't know that. But you never know. Sorry, I just have to say as well, the sound of the speaker going, shh, or whoever that was. Like, the BC Legislative Assembly is such a joke. It's such an amateur SHIT show. It's so cringe. Every single time you watch it, it's just a bunch of fools that have absolutely no idea what they're doing. And it's funny the first few times, but when they're talking about something like actually important like this, it becomes something else. It becomes very sad.
There was a time when, like the title he has, there was a time you would have an energy minister and then maybe a climate minister, so they could actually debate and talk about different policies. But you have an energy and climate minister, that those two things sometimes, according to the Liberals and the NDP, would be at complete odds with each other.
Most of the time, yeah.
So you have the one guy that is definitely on the climate side of it, and then so that's why we get nothing going for energy.
But we also have to zoom out a little bit, and we have to acknowledge that it's not really his bailiwick. is it? Or David Eby's. It's Mark Carney's.
Yeah.
All eyes should be on Mark Carney. He has the power to tell Adrian Dix and David Eby to go and, pound sand, as they say. He can do that. And he can render these people just, pointless fools screaming into the void. So the fact that they have any kind of standing or any kind of weight behind them is a consequence of Mark Carney's failure to be decisive and clear and to lead.
Daniel Smith says, we'll just go around. Nutrien did it. Nutrien went to the Washington coast. Daniel Smith says she's open to shipping oil to the Pacific via the U.S. Northwest. Is the U.S. Northwest going to become Canada's vehicle of shipping? Potash is already going there. And she says if BC blocks that pipeline, we'll just try the U.S. instead. And her first preference, she said, is BC, but she can go to Washington and Oregon instead. And here's the path. Here we got a little map that shows you how they would do it.
I must confess, I don't know the legal arrangement in the United States. I don't know whether they could refuse that at a state level, Washington and Oregon, or if Washington, D.C., like the White House, could overrule them. I think the White House can overrule them. But if it's anything to do with the states, both Oregon and Washington would say no to that, wouldn't they? Because they're cut from the same cloth, at least on the coast. They're cut from the same cloth as Vancouverites. They may be a little bit more moderate than Vancouverites, a fraction closer to the center, but they're still extremely hostile to fossil fuels and ignorant of the role they play in our civilization. So could be tricky as well.
Yeah. And then there's just another opinion piece you can go read. And rhetoric and MOUs don't make us an energy superpower. And that's basically what we were saying. Like, when are we going to actually get stuff done? Like, 9 months here, and we're still talking, right?
And fast forward another 9 months, and I'll bet you anything we're still talking.
But what are
Jenny
we
Smith's
working?
got this dream, hasn't she, of like by the spring next year, like it's all gonna come together. We'll know what's what. Like I wouldn't be so confident.
So here's our energy.
But she has to be, obviously.
So here's our energy minister, and where is he spending his time? Let's listen to this clip and tell me if this is where the energy minister should be spending his time.
You're one away from a majority now. Do you think you can convince more to come over? Is there some people ready to defect?
Let's say I'm getting lots of inquiries.
I mean, Tim Hodgson being credited with the guy that convinced Michael Maw to move over. It's an affront to democracy. Like, I mean, if you want to win seats, go through an election. But Tim Hodgson seems to be working the back channels to win a majority by whatever method they can, when he should be focusing on getting a pipeline, not trying to win whatever trick they can or whatever they can to win a majority. They should allow the Canadian population. We only get a vote every 4 years on typically, and this is a total disrespect for the voting process.
But he would say, and his sycophants, his communications department, for example, the CBC, would say this is actually a means to that end, because if he does these sly little backroom deals and gets a majority, then all guns blazing on natural resources projects and nothing to stop them. They can do anything then, because they won't have to go and try and bribe the Bloc Québécois or whatever.
Who has stopped them so far? I mean, they got their Bill C-5 and they said, let's do it. Like, nothing has tried to slow down any energy. If anything, it's been encouraged.
Yeah, I'm not saying it's a good argument, but that's what they would say.
And then from the National Post, an opinion piece here, Chinese interference making a comeback. I mean, there's been allegations on this Michael Ma move that he met with some Chinese delegates before making the jump. So, I mean, we've seen Chinese interference. Mark Carney's Brookfield also took a loan from China, as you know, like a lot of the Brookfield investments in China suffered in that real estate, and they're still suffering in real estate development in China there, as it's cratered upon itself.
China, they're suffering in everything. It has this reputation among people that don't read about China, don't know anything about China, as being kind of like invincible, just like this superpower that's constantly on the rise. In reality, China's debt situation, the housing situation, which is sort of intimately linked to the debt, demographics, like China is an extraordinarily troubled country, very, very, very troubled. And the dreams that it has of becoming, you know, as rich as the United States, at least on a per capita level, like in terms of income, really don't look like they'll ever happen. It looks like it almost looks for China that they've peaked. So they're in a lot of trouble.
Well, I can tell you, Joe, here in the comments here, it's not us, it's YouTube. So you just have to watch what you say on YouTube because they have filters that automatically censor people. So not us. And here's Vasi Capella. She has Pierre Poilievre, and he has an answer to this backroom dealings with Tim Hodgson. It's odd that Tim Hodgson is the guy doing the backroom dealings. He's supposed to be the energy minister. Well, what's he doing backroom dealings? And he is a finance.
Because he's the friendly face of the Liberal Party, isn't he? Because he almost seems like he could be a conservative, as we said. Yeah. He could be a sort of liberal type conservative of the Stephen Harper days or whatever. It's possible, and that's why he's the face of it, because he's like, they can speak to him. It was never going to be like Gould or whatever, any of these, or Debra Sin, like Gil Ball maybe.
Let's listen to Vasi and Pierre Poilievre here.
I didn't hear you say that you unequivocally don't think other MPs will leave for the Liberals. I asked because two Liberal ministers, Minister McKinnon, Minister Hodgson, have both intimated that there are others who have approached them. If MPs in your party were happy with you and your leadership, wouldn't they stay?
Well, I think the ministers you just mentioned, along with Mr. Carney, are trying to manipulate an undemocratic majority that Canadians rejected that would drive up grocery prices, housing costs, and crime. Canadians voted against the rampant inflation Liberals have caused. They voted against out-of-control spending. They voted against the soft on crime laws and the open border immigration policies that Liberals have imposed. And if Mark Carney believes that he should have a majority to go ahead with the high-cost policies he's running on, then he should get that mandate from Canadians in an election, not through dirty backroom deals.
I mean, I think Pierre Poilievre needs to get to the answer quicker instead of all that other stuff that, you know, is typical speech, and just say this is not the voice of democracy. Having one person decide for the 27,000 that voted for them. That's the simple answer.
But that's also, people are saying about Poilievre that he needs to reflect a bit more, and he needs to show a kind of self-examination, self-reflection, and be a bit more human and serious. You know, people are saying all kinds of things about Pierre Poilievre, but it's not happening because that's not who he is. You know, he is not what a lot of people want him to be or think he should be, and he's not willing to change. And I think that's why the word on the street in Ottawa is that his days are numbered, and that even if he wins, which he will almost certainly win, the leadership review, if he passes that he's going to be finished, you know, that he'll be gone within a year or something like that. I mean, I couldn't imagine that happening. Even on the day of the election, I think I remember saying he'll still be the Prime Minister. So I really did think that, but now I don't know. It's like his balloon's popped, and it's almost like he's been trying to destroy his own career. Yeah, I don't know what's got into him. It could well be the case that, you know, to an extent, when you're in a position of power, a lot depends on who you surround yourself with and who you allow into your circle to give you advice. And it could well be the case that he's just surrounded himself with pillocks, you know, and here he is now looking very feeble.
Here's a clip here on protesters, and it was a small gathering, but CTV obviously pointing that out as well.
I'm in Michael Maugh's riding of Markham Unionville in the Greater Toronto area. A small protest took place outside of his constituency office over what he did.
I feel it's not about betrayal. It's about the transparency, trustworthy, and the whole process of democracy.
Some in the small crowd, as you can see, carrying signs calling on him to resign. He was elected to Parliament just back in April, winning that riding by about a little over 1,000 votes over his Liberal competitor.
CTV making sure they use the word small several times when there's a protest they like, then they will just talk about protests. Not they wouldn't put those adjectives in there, but yeah.
Is it just me? I mean, this is a completely neither here nor there kind of comment, but is it just me, or is it like Chinese Canadians, I assume from Hong Kong in most cases, are almost like the only people left in Canada that will go and protest? I'm thinking about Richmond, not just the Cowichan thing, but also you remember the what was it, the open drug use site that they had there, and the massive protests, and they were all Chinese. It's kind of like has like the older generations of Canadians just forgotten how to protest, or I suppose they tried, didn't they? They tried to protest in 2021 or whatever and got slapped with a horse's hoof. So maybe they don't
lots of time, yeah, horses
bother anymore.
And labeled lots of times as whatever they could come up with whenever they said anything. But here,
totally defamed and had their reputations destroyed. And that is important to note. That didn't happen, did it, with the drug use site in Richmond? And it's not going to happen to these either, because the people that would do that thing are afraid to do it because it's people of Chinese origin or people from China. So they're just like, oh, can't touch that. That would be rude.
Here you go. CBC and Al Jazeera viewers consider themselves uniquely informed, and that's from an Elections Canada report. The two TV networks were named by self-described informed voters when asked where they got their news. Imagine that, eh? Findings were drawn from 13 focus groups nationwide. Elections Canada paid over $160,000 for the research by Earnscliffe Strategy Group and Ottawa Pollster. Why don't they ask us? We could do it for cheaper than that. Few Canadians, this is the best part, few Canadians watch the CBC, according to Numeris, formerly the Bureau of Broadcast Measurement. Ratings have declined for years and trail private sector TV and radio networks. Like, they're actually worse than the private sector and several independent media outlets. Fewer people are watching, and that's from the chief research officer at Numeris. He testified that in 2024 hearings of Senate Transport and Communications. It has a steeper decline than other outlets. All TV networks showing downward trends in audiences over the past 10 years. The CBC network itself does tend to have a steeper decline. Yet, they seem to have a steeper incline when it comes to funding. Focus groups participants were questioned on their media habits in the April 28 general election that saw Prime Minister Mark Carney campaign on a promised, listen to this, $150 million, and they got it too, increase in the CBC's $1.4 billion grant. Canadians rely on CBC. I'm just not sure who those Canadians are, because fewer and fewer watch it. We'll not only increase CBC's funding by $150 million, we'll also make the funding statutory, meaning Parliament as a whole will need to improve any future changes to its funding, not just Cabinet. By strengthening our public broadcast, we are protecting our identity and our culture and helping it to shine around the world. There's no shine on that apple.
No. I do find this funny, this story quite funny. Though at the top there, it talks about a wide array of news sources, including the CBC, the BBC, the Associated Press, Al Jazeera, Reddit. It's like
Reddit, yeah.
You think that's a good variety? All left liberal, pro-establishment. Although Al Jazeera, a different kind of establishment, I'll give you that. But still.
And here's what.
The problem is media literacy. People don't even know that. The most basic facts about the news. People don't even know that the CBC is left liberal, for example. Like, some people still refuse to believe that. There needs to be a certain amount of almost like training or education of people so they know what it is they're getting. So if they read the CBC, they got to know what prejudices the CBC embodies. But I feel so many people don't know that, have no interest in learning that.
Listen to this statement from Carney. Carney called the CBC the most important of Canadian institutions. Wonder why. What work does it do for the Liberal Party? Any budget cut is an attack on our Canadian identity. If elected, my government will take action to enshrine and protect and strengthen the CBC for generations to come. Nobody's watching. It says right there, nobody's watching the CBC. Their audience continues to shrink. Who watches it? Older people. And the Liberals themselves watch it, and it's their echo chamber. So that's where they get the reinforcement that they need on their messaging. You know, they say a message,
but it's also
hear it back to themselves.
It's like the Catholic Church used to grant something called the imprimatur, which let you publish something. It was like that's what CBC does. It gives the imprimatur to the Liberal Party's ideas. It gives it official blessing, and it helps with the kind of moral or the ethical cover, and it creates a whole kind of moral universe almost, I would argue, even though it's completely irrelevant as a news source day to day. It's like garbage, as everybody knows, bar a few decent articles every week or so.
So we're going to show you the CBC website later on. We're going to highlight some of the fraud, waste, corruption, incompetence here in a bit, and then we'll show you what they covered, because I'm going to guess none of it. But and here's another one. James was the first journalist kicked out of the Carney presser. It was Carney's launch event, and this is Canadian Association of Journalists condemned Carney for blocking reporters from his event. I mean, this is going on and on and on, right? I mean, we've been trying to get you into the parliamentary gallery. We've been trying to get it. Mark Miller, has he responded to you yet? That's a good question. Mark Miller, have you got a response to that email?
Yeah, I need to chase him down. But it's, you know, you don't they? These people whose salaries we pay to serve us, whose job title is literally public servant, but they do really nothing of the sort. They're Liberal servants, aren't they?
And here's some more bad news for the CBC, because people are not watching the CBC, they're watching social media, and that's what Bill C-18 does, is block us, independent media outlets, from utilizing the audience we earned serving our community of 200,000. They've taken that away from us. It's over 2 years now they've taken that audience away. But Instagram, TV app, coming to Amazon Fire streaming device. Who's got cable still? Who's paying for cable? I haven't had cable forever. You have cable still?
Sure don't.
Yeah, I don't know. Who's got a telephone, a landline, all that stuff? You're here from Holly Donald Blacklocks. The budget office yesterday challenged Finance Minister Francois, I love his name, Francois Philippe Champagne. I wish I could have a name like that. Mine is so like blah. Francois Philippe Champagne sounds important. To explain why he seeks a 20% hike in the national debt ceiling. The increase would take the permitted borrowing to a record $2.54 trillion. So that budget, are they going to stick to it? Why do they need that big increase? Parliaments may wish to request that in a new report to Parliament to assist in the review of the new proposed amendment. And Budget 2025 did not provide any specific details regarding how the new proposed maximum borrowing was calculated. The debt ceiling has jumped more than $1 trillion in 5 years. Thank you, Mr. Trudeau, from $1.168 trillion in 2020 to $1.83 trillion in 21 and $2.13 trillion last year. Just crazy. And who pays for it? You do. Do with less.
Yeah, but who gets paid to do it? Francois Philippe Champagne. So there's a flip side, two sides to every story.
I think we should just start a website showing all this stuff, this fraud, waste, abuse, corruption, incompetence, whatever you want to call it. Greg Fergus keeps coming back to mind. 200, what was it? 200, I couldn't get this number on, 276,000, near $300,000 in 1 year in expenses, traveling, globetrotting. Carney's trip to join Donald Trump there to sign that peace deal. What was that, $73 million or something like that?
Are you talking about the private, the jet that they had to charter? Yeah, I don't know. It wasn't that. I don't think it was 73 million, but it was a lot of money. Yeah, I think it was millions for sure.
And also, Holly Dolan has reached out on this. That The grave records, the Department of Crown and Indigenous Relations is sealing all reports filed by Kamloops, BC First Nations that were paid to exhume the purported graves of 215 children at that Indian residential school as confidential information. So they received $12.1 million in funding for the exhumation of remains and forensic DNA testing after announcing in 2021 it discovered graves in an orchard using ground-penetrating radar. And no remains recovered to date. And now they're sealing all those records. Because why should you know? Regarding the topic of ground-penetrating radar, I've made a suggested revision, wrote another manager. It might be preferable to use the term anomalies for now. Staff are also advised to stay extra quiet on the designation of residential school as a national historic site. So they just want this one to go away quietly.
And they're being given permission to do that, you know, by the CBC. They've got the stamp of approval. All the rest, they're totally on board with this. Even, you know, the CBC in particular, which made so many mistakes, so many basic errors in reporting, like journalistic standards that you could barely imagine were possible, not least at a national broadcaster. Just total trash journalism, pathetically incompetent journalism. You know, you'd think they would have a lot to prove, like a lot to say sorry for, and a lot of like the record to correct. But of course, no, they've got the signal. It needs to be buried and forgotten about, you know, forgive the pun. But 12.1, the thing I'm thinking about here is $12.1 million. And then, you know, as you point out, no need to tell us anything about that, though. That's fine. We don't need any information. You just take $12 million and then we'll basically lock everything away and journalists won't be able to report it to the public.
And the CBC...
I mean, can you imagine spending money in any way like that? Can you imagine huge sums of money? Can you imagine doing that and just like locking it away in a cabinet? They behave like criminal gangs or something sometimes, don't they? They're just so reluctant to provide information. I mean, when I say that, the Liberal Party.
CBC has been paid over the years as Canada's watchdog. That really is the function of the state broadcaster. It's supposed to be Canada's watchdog, right? It's supposed to hold power accountable. So where were they when all this was going on too? Why weren't they doing stories then? Why did this just come to light? And why did they blame the public instead of taking some responsibility themselves? Where were they as the watchdog? Where are they now as the watchdog is a better question. Where are they now as the watchdog? At least the PBO's office holds them accountable, but what does the CBC do? Slag on the PBO for highlighting things. Here's another one though. A prejudice at medical schools. Anti-Semitic slurs are now commonplace among medical students. Jewish interns and healthcare practitioners in 3 provinces have told the Senate Human Rights Committee doctors in Alberta, Manitoba, and Quebec bigotry was a part of everyday life on campus, and that's since October 7th, 2023. Academic sightings shown the greatest increase in anti-Semitism, and that's from the Jewish Health Corps Association of Alberta, referring to Hamas terrorists killing and kidnapping Jews in Israel, including 8 Canadians. Alberta's healthcare sector faced a systemic crisis of anti-Semitism.
Meanwhile, if in the same institutions you were to read out word for word that Blacklock's article about the non-bodies, you know, the anomalies, you would be expelled, and you would never work in that sector ever again. You'd have to go and get a job at Tim's. Like, that's what would happen to your life. But if you go around celebrating Islamist child murderers and talking about Jews as being insects or something like that, then that's okay by me.
And here another one from Holly Dona Blacklocks. Trust us, not good enough. The Canada Revenue Agency has a duty to explain itself when rejecting taxpayers' appeals, and that's a federal judge said that. Trust us, insufficient. And we've got the right has no place in public administration decision-making, wrote Justice David Stratus. A skeptical public deserves more than dismissive platitudes on tax matters. Here's one. Where's the answer on the tax dodge of $6.6 billion by Brookfield? Where have we fixed that yet? Where is the focus on that? That seems to be like a big plump, juicy plum sitting there on the table to go after, doesn't it?
Yeah, but it's got barbed wire wrapped around it, hasn't it? So no.
According
Might
to
look juicy, but it's dangerous.
when he ran, he said that he would fix that because he knows how they got there, like how they exploited those loopholes. But he was also the economic advisor that would have been advising on tax policy. Sometimes you just don't know. And Defense Minister McGuinty there, David McGuinty, says that he's confident Liberals will get military procurement right. Why now? What have you been doing before? Hey? But he figures that if you change the slide there, he says he told the news that he's confident Liberals will succeed in revolutionizing the Canadian Armed Forces amid enormous surge in military spending. Should we start with safe drinking water? Should we start with that? Should we start with flushing toilets? Should we start with fixing the walls that are deteriorating when the Auditor General went out there and found that 7 of the 14 places she inspected were almost uninhabitable? Should we start with making a decision on some jets since Stephen Harper decided to buy the F-35s? How come AUKUS is buying nuclear subs and Canada is looking at South Korea to buy diesel subs? How come we bought sleeping bags that weren't even fit? Like the Canadian Tire sold better sleeping bags. Yeah, we're going to get it right. Promises.
Yeah, I'm sure. They've got the record, haven't they? So.
Well, here's the big news. Canada's EV mandate, they won't scrap it, right? And that's what's killing our auto sector. That's what's killing, and that's the plain truth. Like, I mean, I put that on my LinkedIn a day ago. The auto sector, and I said it for almost a year. Scrap the EV mandate. You are literally driving the automakers out of Canada. And here's Ford now announcing it expects to take a massive, I think this is the biggest one in corporate history, a massive $19.5 billion write-down on EV investments. As it says, no thanks. The sum is among the largest impairments ever taken by a company. Ford lost $13 billion on its EV investment since 2023. And it's going to really plow into hybrids and extended range EVs, which include like hybrids, onboard gasoline engines. Huge write-down, but the stock went up on that news, and they're building new plants, and they're talking about jobs, and it was a good reaction on the stock because there's only one company that makes money selling EVs. Do I need to say who it is again? Does everybody know by now, if you watch this show on a regular basis, which company makes money selling EVs? Anybody? Rivian, nope. No, you're toying now. Yeah. So, and then Jim Farley, there was a clip there from him a couple of years ago that I think he said when they started making the Ford Lightning, because they're gonna quit making the Lightning altogether, and he said, "Take that, Elon."
We bet big on electric vehicles.
What? There's gonna be a huge accident.
We know the whole world's gonna be driving them one day.
You serious?
We want them to be built here in Canada.
Somebody drop you on your fucking head?
We want the jobs and the great salaries that go with them going to Canadian workers. So we invested.
That's good. I didn't know you were going to play that, but anyway.
It's pretty funny. Sometimes I forget he ever existed, and then I'm reminded, and it's has an interesting effect on my mind.
There you go. I mean, how many times they need to be told? Like, I mean, remember Chrystia Freeland said everything's great, and then the CEOs came, the 6 Canadian CEOs of the auto sector came out of the room and said, drop the EV mandate. And she's like, EV mandate sticks, and everything's great. And they started moving plants south.
And started talking unironically about how it was going to help prevent forest fires, because obviously that makes perfect sense. Anybody that knows anything knows that makes sense.
And
but really, I mean, just to reiterate, as we've said it many times, but the reason they're doing this is because the Liberal Party is compromised by its own extremist group that has demanded this kind of thing, and they're not willing to let it go.
Diane says she's getting PTSD from seeing Justin and Katy Perry, the astronaut and the actor. The European Union softening emissions as well for new cars. This EV thing is dying. Yet the Liberals continue to have this cloud hanging over top of the auto sector in Canada. When they're looking to make investments, do you think they're going to pick Canada if they have that cloud hanging over their head? Because the legacy automakers do not make money selling EVs.
And the only reason that anyone ever manufactured cars in Canada anywhere in the first place was because of cheaper energy.
Yeah.
And
corporate
we hear this chit chat about making Canada into an energy superpower, but I don't know. I mean, I'm yet, as you said earlier, I'm yet really to see the evidence. I'm yet to see like serious physical evidence that that's being planned. Because if you really wanted to be an energy superpower, you would generate energy any way you could. But that's not what this government is saying. They want to generate energy in very, very particular ways. It's not an all-out like build kind of thing, is it?
Don't get me wrong, I love EVs. I drive one, been driving one for over 2.5 years now. But forcing them on people is not the way to go, and it just doesn't work in many parts of Canada, and for many different industries it doesn't work. And how many failed investment, how many billions and billions of dollars has the Canadian government poured into EV plants that have been closed, mothballed, or delayed now? Billions and billions and billions of dollars wasted. And Justin Trudeau, they're saying, like all the, like the promises, the empty promises.
And it's also the industry is very vulnerable to disruptions to world trade, to globalization. As most people know, like a lot of the ingredients that they use to build the batteries and to build the cars are extracted by China, or refined by China, at least the minerals.
Yeah.
And then there's semiconductors and things like that. Like it's very much reliant on that global trade system operating smoothly, which is not really something that many people are betting on now, not in the coming decades. And in that world where you can't obtain those materials to build an EV, obviously you're going to just build an ICE car, aren't you? Because that's what we can do. That we know how to do that. We don't need China really to build a gas car.
And even their grand poobah of climate change and all that stuff, Bill Gates has changed his mind on it. But you are seeing less of it being talked about, even by the CBC broadcaster. It's not like it was before, where you just screamed at people, because it's fallen quite short of all of its goals in that. And we look at what's happened to the Canadian economy here. We've squandered our prosperity, and we continue to do it as well. And that's the bad part. And energy superpower, 9 months. Ask yourself, what's done? What's done in 9 months? And then if you're looking across the border there, what has he done in 9 months or a year, almost a year now? Well, it's been a year for him. And what have they gotten done? And you compare that. You start putting down, if as an accountant, you put down what they've gotten done and what we've gotten done. It's night and day. Let's move on to our BC news.
Live from the Now Media Newsroom.
And, this DRIPA and Richmond decision and all these decisions are coming home to roost. And now, like the BC government saying they're going to guarantee up to $1 billion. That went up from 150 million, now $1 billion. And then when I interviewed that lawyer, they're talking trillions of dollars that could be. And where's BC government going to get that kind of money?
It's going to seize your assets.
Yeah. And then now even
tax your assets anyway.
Even now the township of Langley will seek intervener status in the appeal to have the Cowichan Tribe's Richmond Aboriginal title decision overturned. Remember when EB blocked, when the court said he could go and tell the property owners so they could have intervener status, but he didn't even let them have that. Nobody thought that they should even know what was going on. But here's the Langley Township to join the appeal over Aboriginal title rulings. And the Township Council approved a member motion brought forward by Mayor Eric Woodward and seconded by Councillor Michael Pratt, citing the need for stability and certainty in private property rights, which the mayor said was the foundation of the local and provincial economy. You can add Canadian economy to the end of that as well. If you don't have property rights, do you have a nation?
Well, I suppose they don't have property rights in North Korea. Is North Korea a nation? It's just not the kind of nation you want to be.
And then David Eby also brushing aside calls from 15 Metro mayors to reverse course on his housing legislation. And we also saw that in that interview I did with Gavin Dew when he proposed the stuff on the Airbnb legislation. They just don't like admitting they're wrong. So 15 Metro mayors warned mandatory density and zoning have triggered backlash and chaos. And Eby is shrugging off a blast of criticism on his housing policies from Metro Vancouver municipalities, telling a coalition of 15 mayors he's not altering course or backing off on what they view as running roughshod over community planning. That's, when they put that blanket thing and said, we'll do all the zoning, right? And then we talked about that last year when they did it in Kelowna here. So what's the purpose of the city departments then if they're going to do all the zoning? And the communities are saying one size does not fit all and will never work. And that's what we said here too. And that's the same thing with that Airbnb policy. Kelowna is a tourism town. And just that one size, one policy. And I've talked to Brenda Bailey on it. I've talked to David Eby on it. And they just won't budge on these things. And
there are a few places that are upset about this. Not be surprised to hear that North Vancouver is one of them. They're just like, what are you talking about? Peasants live here? It's like upsetting almost everybody, isn't it? But, we've said it so many times. I don't see how Eby and the NDP last much longer. I mean, is it really possible? Is it really possible for them to stay in power now? I'm expressing doubt on that.
I think that the NDP might see the writing on the wall and may offer to sacrifice David Eby. That's the typical thing for a party. They're going to offer up David Eby as a sacrificial lamb. I have an interview. I got it lined up. Ravi Parmar is going to join me on Friday, the forest minister, because I did interview the mayor, Rob Douglas of Crofton, on the Domtar closure and the devastating effect that's going to have on that community, and just the tragedy in forestry in general over the past few years. It's not just a current thing. And Tim Hodgson promising more money. I listened to that this morning and I was just like, he's promising more money, and guess what else? Committee hearings. Like what committee hearings? Like that for sure will fix things. And we listened to that clip earlier where they said, they got their unemployment. I'm not sure if that's going to be enough. No, it's not going to be enough. Unemployment pays like a fraction of what they were getting at these jobs. It's not going to be enough to make their house payments and their truck payments and all that stuff and feed a family.
Not to mention the emotional consequences of that. Like I'd still say the vast majority of people hate the idea of that, and they would lose. They would lose pride in themselves and all the rest of it, as well as their town.
Forestry, Shelley just pointed out, she's a regular viewer, pointed out that 100 Mile House too, with the closure there too, 236 jobs in 100 Mile House. I mean, that's that community. It's devastating for communities. And go watch that interview with Rob Douglas, the mayor, and he talks about how devastating it is for the community. It's just not jobs lost. It's the community. And, we saw a mill go in Bear Lake, which is, what else is in Bear Lake? And that's way in northern BC. Like, you don't live there just for the weather. You live there because there's a job. And Shelley's also pointing out Prince George lost 8 mills in 3 years. I mean, the forestry industry dying, and most of the industry talking about fiber, access to fiber. And that's the one thing they won't fix. So I'm going to have Ravi Parmar on Friday. And that's the question we're going to ask. Why don't we fix the things we have control over instead of like strawmanning Trump? Trump is contributing to the problem? Yes, of course he's contributing to the problem with tariffs. But why don't we fix the things that we have control over?
It's also to pretend that that's new. The Americans have been tariffing lumber for forever.
Yeah. And then here's another one. Eleanor Sturko, a big voice in the BC politics, and the kicked out of the Rustad's caucus there, and now Rustad's out. But new data shows the shocking extent of NDP's healthcare crisis, with many patients being cared for in hallways and emergency room nooks rather than spaces designated for ongoing care. 7 hospitals across BC operated more than 20% capacity, over capacity last year. I mean, it's so normal. I mean, I've been in the hospital many times for some patients, and in the hallway, some people, I went in there. I won't get deep into the story, but I like for 2 weeks I was going in there, the same patients in the hallway for 2 weeks. No dignity in that's for sure. And then, and again, a lot of this linked to immigration, the rampant immigration, the policies. And then they said it had nothing to do with if you complained about immigration, you were a racist. Mark Miller.
That's his favorite line of attack, isn't it? Or line of defense. Right. That's his trench, his Maginot line is, well, you're a racist.
The CBC did a good job of helping with that as well. When somebody complained, they would run stories on you so you were scared to talk. And again, you and I talked about it, I think, off air. If we talk about old King days, what they did with the truckers rally was a really good, like if they would have pulled out an old history book and said, how do you deal with this, right? Put heads on sticks at the gate. You freeze bank accounts. You put a head on a stick at the gate and let people know this is what you get for defying the government.
Yeah, but obviously with mutatis mutandis, the necessary changes. Make the changes from medieval morality, what's possible, what you can get away with, shift it to the 21st century. So not so much going and getting people's heads off with a sword, but yeah, debank them, destroy their reputation, propagandize against them to turn the people against the protest. It was perfect. What I was saying was somebody like, Richard II or Henry VIII or somebody like that, they would completely understand what had been done there. They would get it. Henry, but without, Henry VIII, the Pilgrimage of Grace, very, very violent suppression of a rebellion. But if you subtract the blood and say, look, we don't really do that now. You can't get away with blood now, hennas. So we do it like this. He'd be like, yes, I see. Yes.
We got some international news for you. We got quite a bit in here. So hang with us here. We got some good stuff.
Live from the Now Media Newsroom.
Before we get into that, we promised to go look at the CBC and all the stuff we covered here. Let's go do our regular daily peek at what the CBC is covering today and see if they're covering any of that stuff. I don't know who Jimmy Lai is.
Hong Kong. He started a newspaper in Hong Kong that was, looked upon with disfavor by Beijing. Pretty obscure for a Canadian audience, to be fair.
I don't see any of the debt stuff, the $2.5 trillion, any of the stuff we covered off. Again.
Susie Wiles?
Susie Wiles, of course. Lots of U.S. stories. No prejudice at medical schools. Nothing about the Fed sealing the grave records. Nothing about that. You'd think people would be interested in that. Nothing.
There's been a winter storm in the Levant, and some people in Gaza have been affected by it. That's there. That's got a really big block on the front page. Weather in the Middle East.
Hey, nothing about CBC having a shrinking audience but a growing budget. Nothing about that. Nothing about that.
I wonder if those two things are related. Putting as one of your main stories, the weather in the Middle East. not even particularly bad weather either, just a little storm.
Well, let's hit the international.
Maybe that's linked to your lack of popularity.
In the international news, this is the ABC, which is the Australian equivalent of the CBC. They're interviewing the daughter of a victim who was shot and hospitalized in the Bondi Beach terrorist attack here. And let's play a clip from her.
How are we feeling? Is this what you wanted? Is this enough now? Will you listen to us? Albanese, Wong, will you listen to us? Will you actually do something? Will you actually don't have to stand up and say anything because we don't believe you anyway. And ABC, I've got to say, will you cut out the biased reporting? Mainstream media, we feel will you cut it out? Will you actually let us have a voice? Because we feel that part of the reason that the Jewish people have experienced such a massive change in Australia towards us. I mean, I'm Aussie. I'm Aussie, you know. And I'm not a religious Jewish girl, but a woman. But since October the 7th, since all the hatred that's been thrown at us, I started to wear my Magen David because I'm Jewish. And if you have something to say, you can say it to me. And ABC, please stop with the biased reporting.
Victoria, we are so sorry for what you are going through and what you have been through, and we really hope that your father recovers.
Took that on the chin, didn't they?
A bunch of Liberal NDPs, Liberals and NDP MPs went to visit the West Bank there to connect with Palestinians, of course, right? And they were denied entry, though. A small delegation containing several anti-Israel MPs from the Liberal Party and NDP have been denied access to the Israeli-controlled West Bank. The group, consisting of 5 Liberals and NDP's Jenny Kwan, attempted to cross in the West Bank, which is part of Palestine from Jordan, were denied by Israel border guards, citing security reasons.
Big surprise there, isn't it? People that hate your country, or people that hate a country, denied entry into that country by that country's border guards. Is that a surprise to anyone? But obviously they'll portray this now as like evil Israel and all the rest of it. But that's just, I mean, I think in part that's kind of why they do things like this. They feast on this kind of story, don't they?
And then Trump says they're closer to peace in Ukraine than ever before. The war should never, I mean, he says that all the time. The war should never have started. I'm going to play this small clip here, though, until he says the stuff that he repeats over and over again.
A very good conversation 1 hour ago with the European leaders, many of them involving the war with Russia and Ukraine. We had a long discussion, and things are seemingly going well, but we've been saying that for a long time, and it's a difficult one. We had, as you know, settled 8 wars, and one was having a little problem yesterday, Thailand and Cambodia. We were able to straighten that out. There's some killing going on that shouldn't have happened. We appreciate them working to get it straightened out, and they have. The security protocols yesterday were...
That's good. I mean, he's saying they're closer, but including the European Union now saying that their security plan for Ukraine has 6 key points. Ukraine peacetime military of 800,000 troops to deter aggression, a multinational force, Ukraine led by Europe and formed with the coalition of the willing. I like when they do this coalition, the willing. They'll help rebuild Ukraine's armed forces. A ceasefire monitoring mechanism led by the U.S., legally binding security guarantees, investments in Ukraine, and reconstruction. There's Chrystia Freeland there with that bag of $4.5 billion, just waiting to dole it out. And the government has said, guess how much transparency there will be on where that money is spent.
That's national security. Don't expect transparency with national security.
We'll give you some clues that you're going to guess between 0 and 0, and then you'll get that answer. 0 and 0, right?
I have to, again, I mean, this is low-hanging fruit, obviously, but I'm going to do it anyway. But Trump talking about how he ended all these wars and everything. One of them is the war in the Congo, Democratic Republic of the Congo. And there's a very funny interview doing the rounds, because one of the combatants in that war is Rwanda. And the leader of Rwanda, Paul Kagame, was interviewed recently, and the interviewer asked him, said, "Do you have any troops right now in Congo?" And his response is, I mean, we almost should just watch it, but his response is, "I don't know." It's just so funny. And it's like, what do you mean you don't know? And he's like, I don't know everything. It's like,
I don't know.
because that war is obviously still going on. But I don't know. I mean, I suppose Trump's choosing to ignore all that kind of stuff so that he can get his Nobel Peace Prize. But he hasn't, the moral of the story is he hasn't ended that many wars. They're all still basically going on. India, Pakistan, to claim that he's ended that conflict, no chance. Like that. The hatred there is as strong as it's ever been.
But he did announce the construction of a $7.4 billion critical mineral smelter and processing facility coming to Tennessee. It will create 540,000 tons of material a year in America, and that's going to be all those critical minerals, germanium, antimony, I don't know, a bunch of those names, a bunch of those critical minerals.
Yeah. Just sounds like something out of Lord of the Rings, doesn't it? Or Harry Potter or something, but they're very important.
But again, lots of deals getting done in the United States. Like, Ford has announced deals, Stellantis announced deals, Apple's announced deals. Like we can see the stuff that Tesla's doing down there. There's huge investment going in the United States. Huge, absolutely huge. And in Canada, lots of hand-wringing and no pipeline. I think that would be the number one thing to do. Like if you were in the Liberal caucus, you would write that on the board. Pipeline, number one, get it done so that Canadians can say, okay, so we're moving ahead, we're getting stuff done. Not on the board. Get defections.
Doesn't work like that, does it? Yeah. Defections.
President Trump signing. This should have been done many moons ago, and it should be done in Canada too. Classify fentanyl as a weapon of mass destruction. How many people have died in Canada? How many people have died in the United States from fentanyl? And we won't play the clip here because he just basically says fentanyl has killed too many people and affected too many families. And especially the stuff that's being manufactured with precursors from China. And we're using Canada Post to ship these precursors. Isn't that amazing? Canada Post doing the heavy lifting for the drug dealers.
But I mean, you've talked about it with Japan. You can also look at like Singapore and Thailand and other countries in Asia. One of the main reasons that this happens is because, and Trump's aware of this, he's talked about this before. One of the reasons is that the system of punishment here is very lenient and also very to actually get a conviction and even just to charge someone. The standards are high. As a consequence, it's the perfect place to do this kind of thing because the drug dealers and drug takers can operate pretty freely. And Trump even said, if you remember, didn't he? He said, my choice would be to execute all drug dealers. I'm paraphrasing here, but you're not ready for that. He said something along those lines. It's like, I think he and many other leaders in the West recognize what it would take. Well, because we know, because there are countries,
Japan,
that we can go and visit, as you did. You can go and visit these countries. One of the key ingredients is an extremely harsh judicial, punishment if you do drugs or if you traffic drugs.
And in 10 days I was there, zero homelessness that I saw, that I witnessed none, and then also drugs on the street and everything, graffiti, very clean, everything clean. Not even garbage cans around. You have to take your own garbage. Take your garbage with you. Don't dare drop it on the ground. Everything was absolutely clean, and yeah, they have a zero tolerance. Plus, they have lots of safety nets, so it can be done. It's the largest city in the world, the absolute largest city in the world, and they can do it. Why can't we do it? I was walking around 3 o'clock in the morning, and every day for 10 days there, going for a walk, not feeling scared. And I've talked to many people here. Would you go for a walk in Kelowna, in downtown Kelowna, at 3 o'clock in the morning? I have yet to find a person that say yes. So I don't know, in Ottawa, would you go walk downtown in Ottawa at 3 o'clock in the morning for 2 hours by yourself?
I wouldn't do it and expect to be safe, put it that way.
And then Donald Trump, moving ahead, was suing the BBC for what they did when they tried to paint him as an insurrectionist on January 6th. And we're going to play this little clip from Trump and then a little bit from the GB News Network.
In a little while you'll be seeing I'm suing the BBC for putting words in my mouth, literally. They put words in my mouth. They had me saying things that I never said coming out. I guess they used AI or something. So we'll be bringing that lawsuit. A lot of people are asking, when are you bringing that lawsuit? Even the media can't believe that one. They actually put terrible words in my mouth having to do with January 6th that I didn't say. And the beautiful words that I said, right? The beautiful words, talking about patriotism and all of the good things that I said, they didn't say that, but they put terrible words.
That's good. Yeah, people got to get out there more and see different parts of the world and see, because, you know, the media will tell you and the politicians will tell you that this is a worldwide problem. We're not the only ones suffering from it. It's a worldwide issue. And again, the largest city in the world, And I've talked to other people that have been to Tokyo, and I say to them, what was the first thing you noticed about Tokyo? And they said, no homelessness. That was the first thing, because you're looking for it. You'd think the largest city in the world, it would just be. And the amount of people there, holy cow, there's a lot of people there. And they move people, like the subways run or the trains run like on the dot, right? Like if that train is going at 3:57, it goes at 3:57, right? It's, and spotless inside the trains as well, absolutely spotless. But here's
and it's not the only country that's pulled that off. You know, other one like Singapore's quite famous for that. I mean, for being like really clean. They have like massive punishments though if you litter and but even Dubai is another example. Like it's not just an East Asian thing. It is possible to do it. It's a choice.
Well, look what Trump did in Washington by putting the National Guard on the streets. Everything dropped off, all the crime in that dropped off, because if there's consequences for your actions. But here in Canada, one of the things that I've said is if the consequences to your action are better than your current situation, then, you know what I mean? Like you break a window, you get a can of Pepsi, and the worst thing you do is you get arrested, you get a warm bed for a couple hours and a meal, and then you just get thrown back out.
And a lot of interest in you from various groups and organizations. You might even be politicized by groups of people who want to celebrate you or protect you or whatever.
Yeah. Here's GB News on the BBC. They're not fans of the BBC either.
President Trump has filed a defamation lawsuit against the BBC, alleging that the corporation's Panorama documentary portrayed him in a false, defamatory, deceptive, disparaging, inflammatory, and malicious manner. Let me read that to you again. He says the Panorama documentary portrayed him in a false, defamatory, deceptive, disparaging, inflammatory, and malicious manner. He's seeking damages of no less than $5 billion. He's filed the lawsuit.
I think if the CBC wants to change the way they are and they say they want to change and attract more audience, hire this lady and give her full editorial control over the CBC and fire everybody that's there, including Rosemary.
Can you imagine that?
Let her run.
That would be like putting the cat among the pigeons, wouldn't it? That would be like putting the Food Inspection Agency among the ostriches. That's what that would be like. It would just be a slaughter.
I've watched her work, and she does good work. But I mean, a lot of UK journalists are really good at what they do. And Iain has actually worked in the UK at the Daily Mail. They do good work. I mean, Canadian journalism, and you can talk to this. Like, what does it look like in general? Like when you look at the CBC and CTV, and then they just look like they're just like, you know, like at the begging bowl, and don't want to upset the people that are putting the porridge in their bowl.
One of the worst things about Canadian journalism, not necessarily the ethics or the biases or whatever, it's the writing, inability to get to the point quickly. The amount of times that I've sat down and read a CBC article, because they do from time to time write articles that matter, that actually sometimes they have exclusives. And it's just like, I'm just reading it, I'm like, get to the point. Or like the 6th paragraph or something. And it's just like so waffly and so timid and afraid. Whereas if you read British articles, they just tell you the story. The intro is a work of art in British journalism. The intro being the first paragraph. That's got to really sum everything up, and it's got to like art of the story. So you don't, you know, you're not like sat around wasting your time. That might sound like a trivial thing, but that reflects a manner of thinking. Like the British journalists think like that. It's like clarity, and it's like, I will give you the story, I'll get to the heart of it. In Canada, it's a lot of like deceptiveness and timidity. They're trying to like walk on eggshells and not offend people, and then it's it really suffers, I think, as a consequence.
And in Canada, Bill C-18 crushes local independent media. It's been so crushing and devastating. Close to 100 outlets have failed since they put that into place. And we've asked directly to Mark Carney if they would repeal it. And we've asked Justin Trudeau as well, and they will not budge on it. And what they do is they continue to fund the public broadcaster that is not doing the work for the Canadian public. It does not represent the Canadian public. And it has a shrinking audience, and yet they continue to get more money. If you look at that, you have to wonder, and if media that holds power accountable is a foundation of democracy, you have to ask yourself, are the Liberals even interested in democracy?
Yeah, we ask that question a lot, don't we? I would like to hear a defender of the Liberals give us an answer to that, I must say.
Would Mark Carney sit down with this lady and do an hour-long interview? I don't think he would last or test. Maybe he wouldn't last with us, but there you go.
Well, he doesn't sit down for an Canadian broadcasters, does he? I mean, when was the last time he did an interview with a Canadian? It was actually Vasi in like the spring. I feel like it was.
You listen.
That's disgraceful. Where's the clamour? Where are the articles condemning Mark Carney for refusing to sit for interviews?
You listen to
I haven't seen any of those articles.
You listen to the NDP and the Liberals say that Donald Trump is a threat to democracy. How many times have we heard that? Also calling him a fascist and a bunch of other things. How many interviews does he do? How many sit-downs does he do? And he does it with reporters.
Yeah, he never stops.
All day long. But he also does sit-down, like hour-long interviews with reporters.
Yeah, Politico recently, which is very much not his friend, ideologically opposed to him, but still sat down, gave him exclusive.
Tons of them that he doesn't like, and he'll sit down. And I mean, I'd rather have Mark Carney sit down with you and I and call us nothing but crap, but answer the question.
Yeah. Yeah, and to be fair to Trump, he does call them crap, but it's not like the entire time.
No,
he gets a few, in, but he doesn't like spend the whole interview doing. He does actually answer questions.
Yeah.
So yeah, I mean, I would take that. I would take that happily, having something like that, even if he did want to take a swipe at us.
And then this is a foil. This is a Brian Lilly putting this out. They're gonna. Well, let's watch this clip first. And this is a pro-Palestinian group that was going to attack LA on New Year's Eve.
So, as I mentioned in my talking points, on December 12th, a group of individuals, again members of this anti-government group, traveled out to the desert to test their explosive devices. They had precursor chemicals there, and they were going to create these bombs in the desert. What they are starting to do is put their chemicals and wares and the components out on the table there. This footage that you're watching is from our surveillance plane, and then what happened after this is the Los Angeles FBI SWAT team, along with the FBI's hostage rescue team, moved in and arrested all 4 subjects without incident.
Left-wing terrorists. I mean, the name is what I'm most interested in. Turtle Island Liberation Front. Turtle Island being, of course, the name supposedly for North America before Europeans arrived. The logic behind that makes sense, doesn't it? If you actually believe all of this, all the propaganda that's put out there based on a misunderstanding of history, if you believe that this land was stolen and that the people who were living here when the Europeans arrived were genocided and all the rest of it, then yeah, you kind of would be motivated to make bombs and go and kill people, wouldn't you? It's like, this is the thing, like, ideas have consequences, especially when there is, violent and built on resentment to the extent that that myth is,
We're going to skip these next couple of stories, and I want you to go down to the Keir Starmer one, this one down here, because just in a matter of time. Yeah. Let's play this clip here, because this one here is troubling. This is your friend Keir Starmer on farmers in the UK.
Is the Prime Minister aware that some farmers who have terminal diagnosis now are actively planning to expedite their own deaths so they hit before April? Is he aware of that?
I've had discussions with a number of individuals who've drawn all manner of things to my attention.
Is the Prime
That's good. So Keir Starmer, they're looking to raise some more taxes, and farmers looking to beat a deadline.
Bear in mind, farmers in England, a lot of them really are like, they live pretty close to the margins, and their property, because it's land is really valuable in England because it's a tiny country with loads of people on it. Their land tends to be valued at like an extraordinary sum, like in the millions, but they're not millionaires in any meaningful
Land
sense
rich
because
and
it's all
cash
that money
poor.
is in the land.
Land rich, cash
Yeah.
poor. Yeah.
And now they want to tax them more when they die and give their farm to their kids or pass it on into the family. They want to tax them more, and so then you inherit the farm, which is theoretically worth, let's say, like £6 million or something like that, but you can't pay the bill because your revenue is too low to
So
pay
who gets
this
it?
tax bill.
Who gets it? And who gets the land?
Well, exactly. That's what a lot of people have said, that it's just going to be big multinational sort of conglomerates are going to come in, like agribusiness or whatever, and take over. But it's just, that response sums up why he's so unpopular, doesn't it? It just totally lacks the sort of human instinct. He's like, yes, I'm aware of a lot of things. We're talking about people killing themselves because of your taxes. Like, show a little bit of humanity.
And then Australian patriots, who are they reaching out to? Who are you going to call when you don't think your government's helping you? Let's listen in to what they have to say.
President Trump, my name is Scott Challen and I'm standing in front of thousands of Australians here. Let me hear you guys. Mr. President Trump, with all the heartfelt respect in the world as the greatest ally of the US, Australia, we think you're awesome, and we know you've done an amazing job to close your borders, make your country safe, and make America great again. We know that you're meeting with our Prime Minister, Mr. Albanese, on Tuesday the 20th. And we want you to please encourage Mr. Prime Minister Albanese to shut the gates.
I mean, a lot of pushback throughout the world on immigration right now. A lot of pushback. Poland, Hungary, Chile just won that election. Japan going to start moving people out. A lot of the Norwegian countries now talking about it. Lots of pushback everywhere. United States, not so much in Canada. We're we're actually encouraging more to come here in Canada.
Well, there has been the Liberals have had to adapt to reality, haven't they, and what people feel, and they've chipped away a little bit at the immigration numbers. But yeah, it's true that there's been a backlash in the world, really, yeah. I mean, or anywhere in the world that takes lots of migrants, but also countries like Pakistan, who have Pakistan recently deported. It's a sort of pretty generous way of putting it. Deported, I think it was into the millions of people from Afghanistan. Just like rounded them up and chucked them out. So it's happening even in countries that you might not expect it to be happening in.
And then there's lots of talk about how the United States is suffering from, and I do recognize that the border towns are suffering, because a lot of them are really reliant on Canadian business. I mean, a lot of people would go across the line and fill up their gas tanks and buy groceries and that because it was cheaper, which is not a good testament to what's going on in Canada. But Florida breaks its own records, 34 million visitors in the second quarter of 2025. And here's a little shot at Canada. And from the Governor DeSantis, that actually we continue to break tourism records and win Stanley Cups. Canada in a drought of 30 years on the Stanley Cup.
Cheap shot, that, isn't it?
Cheap shot, yeah. Doug Ford, take that, right?
Yeah, Florida's a bit of a it's like a tourism gem, isn't it, for America? It's like one of their number one tourism or tourist destinations. So I'm not surprised that
But I
they're
mean,
doing all right.
the border towns definitely rely on a Canadian public. A lot of the populations, like if you even go look at the Soyuz, the population on this side of the border is a lot higher than what's actually living in Orville, and a lot of people depending on a lot of the Canadians going there. We've got a little bit of tech stuff for you. Dan Ives says 2026 is going to be a monster year for Tesla, and it was a watershed moment the other day when they showed the Tesla driving around by itself, and if people don't recognize that as a watershed moment, we'll just help you understand it a little bit better, because it's huge. It's absolutely huge. Autonomous and AI will be $1 trillion alone for Tesla, according to Dan Ives, and it's huge. And then Grok gets some upgrades. I don't know if you've used Grok, but Grok is I use Grok. It's in the cars now. They actually have it installed in the cars, and so if you haven't had a chance to use it, you can. It's pretty cool. There you go. Ford has whiskey on his shoes, and this is we're getting near the end of our show. I do have Renee Merrifield on at noon today with Beyond the Ballot. We're going to probably focus a lot on British Columbia and the mess that it's in. We did interview Jonathan Kay a while back. You can still go watch that interview live on our show here. I mean, it was live on our show, but the recordings are there. We do ask you to like, share, subscribe, try to help us get this out to a wider audience. The show is growing. We're committed to it. We're trying to do our best to highlight things so that we fight against the narrative. Like, you're told that the whole world is suffering from this drug addiction crisis and homelessness, and yet there are places in the world where it is not happening. So we have to start pushing back and demanding better. Why don't we have a pipeline yet? Energy is everything. And if we're an energy superpower, like Iain says, why wouldn't we get all forms of energy? Sure, solar, wind, great. But why don't we use the stuff that we have an abundance of? You would wonder, like if the fridge was full of bologna, shouldn't we eat some bologna? Even if you don't like...
If you're really hungry as well.
You know, if you're starving, even if the fridge is full of bologna and you don't like bologna. I ate a lot of bologna when I was younger, when we could afford bologna. Anyway.
It is a load of baloney, though, isn't it? To continue with that, using that word, especially as well the deceptive way in which they talk about renewables, the way they talk about wind and solar, as though it's the equivalent of coal or the equivalent of gas or the equivalent of nuclear. It's not. They're very different. They're in different categories. They serve different purposes, but they're being spoken of as though they are the sort of direct equivalents. That's just pure dishonesty.
So here's some things that are going up in Canada. The debt to GDP going up, like we're killing it there, right? The cost of viewership of the CBC, their audience is going down, yet their funding goes up. So cost of viewership skyrocketing. It's great. Great news for the CBC.
It's a hell of a subsidy per viewer, isn't it?
And remember,
we all subsidize those rare viewers that you find.
And we've been looking every day at the CBC, and we still don't see this story. 90 to 100% of federal bureaucrats, it's bonus time in Ottawa. Bonus time in Ottawa. CBC yet to cover that story. Bonus time in Ottawa. People are going to be raking in the checks, and I think the Canadian Infrastructure Bank, I think their average bonus a couple of years ago was $85,000. Not too shabby, right? And there was one employee that was making $177,000, didn't show up for work. Still got her bonus when they didn't give it to her and she complained. So they still gave her bonus. Why not? Canadians continue to suffer, can't make their monthly obligations, and the bureaucrats in Ottawa party like it's 1995. And then Greg Fergus, he's showing you how to get it done. That was after Chrystia Freeland, at the finance minister at the time, says, less travel. And everybody said, good one, Chrystia. Who cares? Party on. And Francois Philippe
because they hear that and they nod their heads. They say, yeah, let's travel. And then they book their travels in. They say, oh, no, this is not travel. This is like really, really important. I really need to go to Jamaica because it's really serious and important. That's what they do. They do it like breathe. It's as natural to them as breathing. They hear the point being made. They even agree with it. And then they say, oh, of course, personal travels are, that's an exception, obviously, because, I'm the Speaker of the House.
A
Do you
numb
know who I am?
Canadian
I'm
said-
Greg Fergus.
A numb Canadian said fried bologna is still a thing. I love fried bologna. It's making me want that for lunch, actually. Fried bologna with cheese in it, bologna bowls. You know, when the bologna kind of curls up, you got bologna bowls there filled with cheese. And you got to use the good Kraft singles for that, right? Anyway, that's our show for today. Hope you're back tomorrow. Again, like, share, subscribe. Help us get this out to more people. I do have Renee Merrifield at noon. And then I'm promised Ravi Parmar from the NDP, the Forest Minister, on Friday. And then I have John Carpe, I believe, today as well. John Carpe is at what time? 2:30? John Carpe at 2:30. We're going to talk about some stuff. And yeah, until tomorrow, 9 a.m. tomorrow. Let's make it a date. And if you could share and subscribe and get this out to more people, we would appreciate it. Thank you for watching Now Media.
Just report the news. We live here too. We're your neighbors, bringing you stories that matter to all of us. No government funding, no outside influence. Kelowna Now, local, independent. News you can trust.